Oh, that's just so terrific, and the whole movie's terrific. It's sad, it's funny, it's out there, it's
Just a
got it all
simple
going
family
on.
drama.
Yeah, simple family drama. Right. So, was that all in the script? That whole sequence, and or I guess it was.
Yeah, I mean the script is just as insane as the movie. It's not like there's a lot of people who ask me like, "Wow, you guys must have just gone crazy in the edit making up all this stuff," and I'm like, "No, the script was insane and even more crazy than the film." I mean, there's a lot of freedom that they give of just they love to be surprised, and so I read the script. I read the script before shooting, and then when I get the footage, I don't consult the script. This is the way we've figured out what we work together over the years.
Right.
And I just cut how it comes in and how I think it should go and kind of off my memory. And as much as I can, just try to flip things on their head a little bit, kind of just to surprise them or make them laugh, knowing that, we can always go back and do what they planned. And, 90% of the time we do end up going back, but occasionally we find these little fun surprises, or we just have a good time watching it cut the wrong way,
Right.
But yeah, it was always scripted. Some of the stuff they would script is just like montage of Evelyn seeing another lifeline or something, and then they would shoot it however, and I would just figure it out.
It's so interesting. I mean, and did they shoot those specific scenes? Were those whole big scenes, and then you just used like 8 frames of it, or
No,
like,
well, sometimes they would shoot. They would give me a lot of options, and they didn't. There was no real prescriptive. I didn't have any storyboards. And it's funny. I heard somebody. They were like, yeah, they were talking about how they boarded the movie, and I was like, they storyboard. They didn't send me those.
right?
Which I assume is on purpose because that's just the way we work. Is not. That's just. It's less fun, I think, to do it that way. They had them in their head anyways. They knew they could come into
They
the
had
edit.
acted it out for you earlier,
Yeah,
so they
exactly.
remembered.
Like they know they can always come in and reconfigure it if they need to.
Wow. And when you were putting this together, did you put your own music and sound effects in it? Because those play a big, huge role. The transitions are all like.
Yeah, I sound really heavily, and Dan Kwan is like he doesn't believe it's going to work unless it's like fully realized sound and music wise. So, and something I learned from Luke is that the sound design is such a big part of it too. Just in finding the rhythm and the comedy, and sometimes like in the audit scene, like sometimes just putting a distant phone ring from off screen while they're in the middle of an intense conversation can just, it adds to that, it adds to the tension or the comedy or things like that, or a door slamming in the background at a certain punctuation point. So these were really heavily sound designed. And I used, it's so Matrix inspired, this film. There was a ton of Matrix temp score in there. I think when she's discovering her kind of fighting abilities, I was like, well, there's a scene in The Matrix like that, when he's in the subway and he gets up and, dusts himself off. So I just threw that in there. It worked great. It was they kind of hit all the right notes. So yeah.
Right. And all the slow motion and everything was shot slow motion, or did you guys?
They shoot a ton of slow motion. I mean, they come from music video where they having the option to slow down or speed up whenever you want is such an asset, especially in music videos. And so for most of the film, they were shooting it where we had the option of going slow if we needed, especially the fight scenes, but not everything. Not when she's saying "I saw my life without you," it's not like they were shooting that 500 frames per second or anything.
Right.
So yeah, and there's like a lot of fun little things in this. Like Dan Kwan, one of the directors, is the guy who gets punched in the face in the alleyway, and just fun ways of playing with genre tropes from the kung fu genre, the horror genre, even the kind of family, like Lifetime movie family drama tropes. And like when they're in the RV, they had missed a day of shooting because of COVID, so they missed one day, and one of them was the RV day. So they shot Wayman and they shot the reverse with kind of a stand-in, and then Michelle is on a green screen in Paris for that whole scene. So there's a lot of like kind of just fun ways of, I think a lot of it comes from their music video days of like, we can make it work, we'll figure it out. when Deirdre rips the door off the hinges into the hallway, they just had a little cardboard door. They ripped it off, and they had someone holding a little bucket of dust up above, and they just poured it out, you know?
It works perfect.
Yeah, there's a joke. Daniel Scheinert, one of the directors, a lot of the crew will say it to him, that they would come up with this plan, and then he'd be like, "So what's the lazy way of doing this?" And that was a lot of what they went with, because, you know, time and money are in small, you know, in small amounts on a film like this.
Right. And did they? I'm just going back to what they shot. Like, is that Super 8 and stuff like that? Did they shoot?
No, Eddie asked me the same thing. It was treated for sure.
Okay, so you guys. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Wow.
So what about conversations? I'm curious again about the running time and how long, because I know the shoot was like, what, 38 days or something?
Yeah, that's right.
So that,
Oh my
I mean,
God.
astonishing, and a huge feat from the ADs as well, I'm sure, to pull that off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just mind-bogglingly complicated. So how long did you edit after that? Like, and then the running time, how did you get your running time down and all that stuff?
We were supposed to cut for 5 or 6 months, but, you know, lockdown happened. We all split up. We had to kind of figure out our workflow and how we work together. And all the theaters were closed, and all the film festivals were closed. So there were no real hard deadlines anymore. And once we showed the first cut to A24, they were like, "Y'all take as much time as you need, because this is a lot of movie, and it's going to take a lot of work." But I think they also just started to really believe in it. So we ended up having 11 months, which was incredible. And it also allowed for us to have like a very humane and family-friendly and human-friendly post-process, where I could spend time with my family and take weekends off, and which is important, you know.
Very important.
Yeah, and so yeah, we edited for 11 months, and then I think our original runtime was closer to 3 hours, like 245, 250, and you know, there was a couple of entire universes that we ended up cutting out. There was one called Spaghetti Baby Noodle Boy, which was one of my favorite parts of the script, and they didn't have time to shoot it. It was one of the things they missed shooting. But it was basically, Evelyn was a spaghetti noodle in a boiling pot of spaghetti, and she had a little boy who was a macaroni noodle who had a hole, who was different and didn't understand, you know, where he fit in, but he was getting ready for throwing day, which obviously is when somebody takes the pasta and throws it on the wall, and if you stick to the wall, you become a man.
Oh my God.
And
great.
And it was voiced by Jenny Slate, and they didn't shoot it, so we had just like pictures of noodles for a long time, and it never worked in the cut. And we were like, it's because we didn't shoot it yet, so we just have to shoot it. And then we shot it, and we were like, this is not working. But that was, you know, throughout the film, that would come back to that universe until it finally culminated. And you can still see in the final montage, there's a clip of someone throwing spaghetti and a little macaroni noodle at a wall.
How funny.
And we just used it as texture at this point.
Can you just talk a little bit about visual effects as well? Because I know
Sure.
there's some kind of crazy story about like 7 people did all the visual
Yeah,
effects.
it was 7 people.
Yeah, go on. What's the
there
story
was like
there?
7 of their buddies. So they, you know, as I said before, they're music video directors, and when you're a music video director, you don't have a big budget, and a lot of the time they end up like putting their own money into these films. So they would work with their friends a lot who are other music video directors, and they all had kind of just figured out how to use After Effects, basically. So I would say 95% of this movie was After Effects, and it was all other directors who just knew how to do it or knew how to figure it out, could Google a tutorial. And so that's what they did, and which meant that because we cut in Premiere, we could just shoot it to After Effects really quick and get it back. And so I would be like, I need a temp, whatever, you know, in the next like 5 hours. And Zach Stoltz, the supervisor, could just kind of like take it, give just for timing and sound design and general feeling, could give me something back by that afternoon. And or Dan and Daniel would take it and do it. So like when she's rocketing back in her chair, they just kind of like, Dan had taken his iPhone, and whenever he had traveled or just been around town, he had just held it on his chest and walked forward for 5 minutes. So he just kind of threw it together, and we popped it in. So it was a very kind of like DIY, you know, there's always some kind of solution in the edit or with visual effects to figure out the problems, because that's the way we came up together, making the, you know, short films and the music videos.
So great. So great.